Unit 2.2, the Wars of Religion, 1560s to 1648. Where we had left off after the Counter-Reformation, we were discussing the changes politically, socially, and religiously in Europe. At this time, we're going to have the Hapsburg-Valois Wars from 1519 to 1559. These are significant to us just because they were the last purely dynastic wars of the 16th century. These wars will be ended by the Treaty of Cateau-Cambrai in 1559. These wars have been political in nature between what we would term as the Spanish and the French, and thus not religious, since both France and the Holy Roman Empire were Catholic. So this is a dispute not over religion but going to kind of predate and transfer us from the Counter-Reformation into the wars of religion. France had kept the Holy Roman Empire from controlling all of Germany, while kind of inadvertently then helping Lutheranism spread. Although the French were Catholic, by keeping the Holy Roman Empire from controlling all of Germany, they inadvertently let Lutheranism spread. France chose the political issue of a possible strong German state on its eastern border as being more important than the religious unity of Europe. So they're going to see that the lesser of two evils is to have Protestantism rather than a strong, unified German state. This is a major reason for Germany's inability to move towards unification early on, and we talked about that Germany will unify much later than others, and Protestantism and the Hapsburg-Valois Wars are going to be a reason for this. Spain will defeat France for control of Sicily, Naples, and Milan, while the Spanish influence was also strong in the Papal States and in Tuscany. During this time, the politics of Europe are going to shift towards Spain, and we're going to start to see the golden age of Spain in the late 16th century. Moving out of the Hapsburg-Valois Wars, we're going to see that from the 1560s to the 1648, wars will be fought largely over the religious issues that cropped up during the Reformation. Spain is going to seek to squash Protestantism in Western Europe and the spread of Islam in the Mediterranean. The French Catholics are going to seek to squash the Huguenots. The Holy Roman Empire will seek to reimpose Catholicism in Germany. And the Calvinist Netherlands will seek to break away from Spanish rule. And a civil war will occur in England between the Puritan and Anglicans. And these are the major religious wars that we're going to be focusing on for this unit that we have foreshadowed in the Reformation. So Spain's Catholic Crusade, we've already talked about the Spanish Inquisition, and so some of this will be a review. We foreshadowed a lot of these things to come. But Philip II, who's going to rule from 1556 to 1598, like his father, Charles V, fanatically sought to reimpose Catholicism in Europe. And remember, Charles V being our Holy Roman Emperor, who had sought to push and end Protestantism alongside the Pope. His son, Philip II, will also fanatically seek to reimpose Catholicism in Europe. Under Philip, Spain will become the dominant country in Europe, and this is where we see that golden age of Europe, golden age of Spain come about in Europe. Escorial is this right here is a picture or an illustration of the new royal palace that Philip is going to build, and monastery and mausoleum in one, built in the shape of a grill to commemorate the martyrdom of St. Lawrence. It will symbolize the power of Philip as well as his commitment to the Catholic Crusade. Okay, so this is a symbol of Philip's reign and also his commitment to the Catholic Crusade. Spain is going to wage a war at this time against the Turks in the Mediterranean to secure the region for Christian merchants. The biggest and most infamous battle is going to be the Battle of Lepanto in 1571. Spain will defeat the Turkish navy off the coast of Greece. Spain's religious fervor in this battle with the Turks is reminiscent of our earlier Christian crusades, and this will end the Ottoman threat in the Mediterranean. Battle of Lepanto in 1571. In terms of the Dutch revolt will take place between 1568 and 1648 under William I, or William of Orange, who will rule from 1533 to 1584. He will lead 17 provinces against the Spanish Inquisition. Philip had sought to crush the rise of Calvinism in the Netherlands, and so William of Orange is going to lead 17 of those provinces against the Spanish Inquisition, against Philip of Spain. William I will bring forth the United Provinces of the Netherlands, formed in 1581, or the Dutch Republic. It will receive aid from England under Elizabeth I, and we will discuss that when we get to Miss Elizabeth. And this will become a major blow to Philip's goal of maintaining Catholicism throughout his empire. The Spanish Netherlands, or what is modern-day Belgium, are those 10 southern provinces that remained under Spain's control. So the Spanish Netherlands, or modern-day Belgium, are the 10 provinces that will remain under Spain's control, while the United Provinces of the Netherlands, or the Dutch Republic, are going to move against Philip and Spain. The Dutch closing of the Scheldt River resulted in the demise of Antwerp as Europe's commercial center and our rise of Amsterdam. Speaking of Miss Elizabeth, we need to talk about Spain versus England. Queen Mary Tudor, Philip, the King of Spain's wife, had tried to reimpose Catholicism in England when she took the throne. We talked about Miss Bloody Mary and her attempts to bring Catholicism back to England. She had married Philip II of Spain before he had become King of Spain. And when she died, as we discussed in our Tudor lecture, Queen Elizabeth I, her half-sister, is going to take the crown, and she is going to reverse Mary's course via the Elizabethan settlement that we talked about in the English Reformation. Elizabeth will actually later refuse Philip's request for marriage, her half-sister's widower. And Elizabeth instead is going to help the Protestant Netherlands in their revolt for independence from Spain. She is going to be stoutly Protestant, and she is going to help the Protestant Netherlands, or the Dutch Republic, in their revolt for independence from Philip II of Spain. In 1587, as we discussed, she'll behead Catholic Mary, Queen of Scots, of whom Elizabeth's opposition had tried to place on the throne with several assassination attempts of Elizabeth. Philip is going to then seek revenge for England's support for the Dutch, and also to make England Catholic again. So kind of double-sided here. He is going to take revenge for Elizabeth's support of the Dutch, and also focus his goal on making England Catholic again. He thus planned a monumental invasion of England in 1588, and this is what is known as the Spanish Armada. This is Spain's attempt to invade England, but it will end in disaster. Much of Spain's navy will lay in ruins due to a raging storm in the English Channel, as well as the effectiveness of England's smaller but better armed navy. This will signal the rise of England as a world naval power. But although this event is often viewed erroneously as the decline of Spain's golden age, because Spain still remained powerful until the mid-17th century, but it will hearken in the rise of England as a world naval power. Miss Elizabeth I here. We've seen this painting before. You can see here, this is showing her dominance or her presence over her nation in this part of the world at the time, the crown here. You can see that through here to her back, or where her glory is not facing, is in destruction, and to her forefront all is calm and well, anything in her vision or her sight. And so this shows her as that politique, master politique of her time and great ruler. So where we're moving on is going to be the French Civil Wars. This is going to be a little of a larger section here because there are at least 9 of these wars between 1562 and 1598. The Valois family, this will be the beginning of the end for this French family. After the death of Henry II, who will be the last of the powerful of the Valois family, a power struggle between 3 noble families is going to ensue for the crown. The throne is going to remain in control, but fragile control, of the Catholic Valois family under 3 of the sons of Henry II. These 3 sons are Francis II, Charles IX, and Henry III. These 3 kings from 1559 to 1589 will be dominated by their mother, Catherine de' Medici, who exerts much control over her sons and serves as a regent for them, to fight to maintain the Catholic control of France. She is going to play both sides in the Civil War, as we see as we move forward to some of our first understanding here. And then we're going to see that she also develops quite a reputation for cruelty. Here's a portrait of Catherine de' Medici. And a portraiture of Francis II and his wife Mary Stuart. So one of our weak kings who are dominated by his mother, who fights very hard to try to keep the French in a Catholic nation. So the French Civil War, there will be 2 sides. The Guise family, which will lead the Catholics in the north, and the Bourbon family, which will lead the Huguenots, or our Calvinists, in the south. Between 40 to 50% of nobles at this time are going to become Calvinists or Huguenots, and many of these were Bourbons. Most nobles are going to convert for religious reasons, but were seeking independence from the crown. This will result in a resurgence of feudal disorder in France. The Bourbons in line were also the next to inherit the throne if the Valois did not produce a male heir. On the other side, we had the Guise family, who were ultra-Catholic and also competing for the throne, and strongly anti-Bourbon. Fighting is going to begin in 1562 between Catholics and Calvinists, and atrocities against both sides or both congregations are going to occur. So the main reason here, although there are religious undertones, those who are supremely Catholic and those who are Calvinist, it is fighting over who will be the next in line. Catherine is going to initially support the Guises in the first phase, of course, because they are Catholic, and this is going to lead us into the St. Bartholomew Day Massacre. The St. Bartholomew's Day Massacre is on August 24th of 1572 because the marriage of Margaret of Valois to Protestant Huguenot Henry of Navarre on this day was intended to reconcile the Catholics and the Huguenots. However, rioting is going to occur when the leader of the Catholics, Henry of Guise, had a leader of the Huguenot party murdered the night before the wedding. Catherine de' Medici ordered the massacre of Calvinists in response. 20,000 Calvinists or Huguenots were killed by early October. Henry of Navarre, a Bourbon, will survive the St. Bartholomew's Day Massacre. His importance will be very evident to us here shortly. And here is a portrait, a painting of the St. Bartholomew's Day Massacre. You can see very much the bloodshed and the amount of loss of lives, 20,000 by early October of our Calvinists or Huguenots. So Catherine at this time, Catherine de' Medici, is going to start supporting the Bourbons and turn away from the Guise family. She's going to kind of wager her support and switch sides to the Protestant Union, who is fighting the Catholic League of our Guise family over here. So a civil war continuing here in France due to this bloodshed. Henry of Navarre, who survived the St. Bartholomew Day Massacre, is going to defeat the Catholic League and become Henry IV of France. So this massacre, the St. Bartholomew's Day Massacre, it actually initiated the War of the Three Henrys, civil wars between the Valois, the Guise, and the Bourbon family, of which Henry of Navarre will be the victor, and become Henry IV of France, and will rule between 1589 and 1610, and become our very first Bourbon king of France. He is one of the most important kings in French history. We'll get into a little more detail with him here in just a second. But the effects of this civil war, as our new Bourbon king takes the throne, is that France is still left divided by religion between our Catholics and our Protestants, or our Huguenot Calvinists. Royal power had been weakened during the end of the Valois family reign, and now we have our first Bourbon king on the throne, and the Valois family now, of course, replaced by the Bourbons. So we have a new dynasty of family coming to the French throne. This is a portrait by Peter Paul Rubens. You should recognize that name from our Baroque art discussion, and it's called The Triumphal Entry of Henry IV into Paris. And you can see here, of course, the use of light and dark and not as much clarity, but overall theme and emotion as the new Bourbon king brings himself into Paris onto the throne. And away with the Valois family. Again, very Baroque in nature. Peter Paul Rubens, just the majesticness of it, the size. Also, of course, the Roman, the nudity, the sensual nudes that he's so well known for. So our first Bourbon king, Henry IV of France, is one of the most important kings in French history. His rise to power will successfully end the French Civil Wars and place France on a gradual course towards absolutism or absolute monarchs. Henry was a politique like Elizabeth I in England, and he is going to seek practical solutions rather than ideological ones like Philip II. And he's very much Machiavellian in nature. Some examples of this are he converts to Catholicism. He did this to compromise and to make peace and to gain the loyalty of Paris. He allegedly stated Paris is worth a mass, or Paris is worth going to Catholic mass for. This is a prime example of him being a politique, that the interest of his state or the state comes before any religious considerations. He's also, of course, fighting for the royal inheritance in doing this, and he will privately actually remain a Calvinist. So the Edict of Nantes in 1598 is where Henry IV is going to grant a degree of religious toleration to the Huguenots. Of course, he's remaining privately a Calvinist, but becoming a Catholic to do what's best for the state or best for France. And so he's granting these religious rights to Huguenots. It'll permit the Huguenots the right to worship privately. Public worship, however, was not allowed, so it kind of familiar with us, with Elizabeth I making one a state religion but allowing people to privately practice their own. Huguenots were not allowed to worship at all in Paris and other staunchly Catholic cities, so to stay out of the very Catholic larger cities. It will give Huguenots access to universities, to public office, and the right to maintain some 200 fortified towns in west and southwestern France for self-protection. In reality, the edict was more like a truce in the religious wars rather than recognition of religious tolerance. Nevertheless, the edict gave the Huguenots more religious protection than perhaps any other religious minority in Europe. However, it did not grant religious freedom for all. Just as we saw the Confessions of Augsburg did not grant to all, the Edict of Nantes will also not consider all, just the Huguenots. The next thing we need to talk about, our next religious wars series, is the 30 Years' War from 1618 to 1648, and it is probably the most important war of the 17th century, and it is a direct result of the failure of the Peace of Augsburg of 1555, that agreement that we discussed in the Reformation that had given German princes the right to choose either Catholicism or Lutheranism as the official religion of their states within the Holy Roman Empire. That truce will last only 60 years until factionalism in the Holy Roman Empire precipitated a cataclysmic war. So here's 1618 to 1648, the map of Europe that we'll be looking at. Here in the pink are the Austrian Hapsburg lands, and the green are our Spanish Hapsburg lands. Yellow are our Prussian lands. Orange are our German states, and blue are Swedish lands. And then we have our boundary of the Holy Roman Empire here, and of course all of our battles taking place in the Holy Roman Empire. The characteristics of the 30 Years' War are that the Holy Roman Empire was the battleground for this fighting. In the beginning, it will be Catholics versus Protestants, but by the end, it's going to be the Hapsburg power that is threatened. It will be resolved by the Treaty of Westphalia in 1648. So moving into the first phase of the 30 Years' War, we're going to be talking about the Bohemian phase of 1618 to 1622. Ferdinand II had just inherited Bohemia, and the Bohemians hated him. Ferdinand had refused to tolerate Protestants. And the Holy Roman Emperor, who Ferdinand II is going to be crowned Holy Roman Emperor, but the Holy Roman Emperor placed severe restrictions on Protestantism. At this time, he has just inherited Bohemia. This is going to cause the defenestration of Prague in 1618, which will trigger war in Bohemia. Two Holy Roman Empire officials will be thrown out of windows 70 feet high. They did not die because they were allegedly saved by a large pile of manure. But this act is going to then cause the emperor to seek to annihilate the Calvinist nobility in Bohemia. Bohemia will name a new king for themselves, Frederick II, but Ferdinand II, as I said, will become the Holy Roman Emperor, takes control, and Frederick II will have to borrow an army to go against Ferdinand II from Bavaria. Frederick, however, will lose his lands in the fighting, and Protestant forces are eventually defeated, and Protestantism will be eliminated in Bohemia. But this rebellion in Bohemia will inspire others. So here's the Bohemian phase. We see Union here in purple, our League, our Austrian Habsburgs in orange, and our Spanish Habsburgs here still in red. So as we have our different groups here in our Bohemian phase will lead us into one of the groups that are inspired by this phase of rebellion in Bohemia. So this will inspire the Danish phase from 1625 to 1629. This is the height of Catholic power during the 30 Years' War. Ferdinand II is going to try to end all resistance at this point and tried to crush the Protestant Northern Holy Roman Empire. Ferdinand II is going to use Albrecht von Wallenstein who will be in power here from 1583 to 1634 for the army. He was a mercenary general who was paid by the emperor to fight for the Holy Roman Empire. He will invade northern Germany and win a number of important battles against Protestant armies. He will eventually defeat the Protestants in the north. And this is the Edict of Restitution in 1629. The emperor will declare that all church territories that have been secularized or taken into Protestant hands since 1552 should be automatically restored to the Catholic Church. It deprived all Protestants except Lutherans of their religious and political rights. Although the German princes, who were Lutherans, were protected under the Edict of Restitution, they still feared Ferdinand, and he will fire Wallenstein in an effort to calm them, to keep things at kind of a resolution here. And here is our map of the Danish phase of the 30 Years' War, and also a picture of Albrecht von Wallenstein, our mercenary general. This leads us into our Swedish phase in 1630 to 1635. This is the point where France and Sweden now get involved in the 30 Years' War. Protestants had liberated territory lost in previous Danish phase, and both entities, France and Sweden, want to stop the Hapsburg power. Sweden is going to take the charge here while France is going to provide support. And Sweden is going to be led by Gustavus Adolphus, and he is going to lead the charge of the invasion of the Holy Roman Empire. The Swedish king is going to lead an army that will push the Catholic forces all the way back to Bohemia. The Battle of Breitenfeld in 1631 is one of the greatest victories of the Swedish phase, in which Gustav's forces ended the Habsburg hopes of reuniting Germany under Catholicism. Ferdinand II will bring back Wallenstein to combat during the Swedish phase, his mercenary hired hand. But in the Swedish advance will be stopped due to this. Gustav will be killed in another battle in 1632. And although the Swedish advance had been stopped, the Holy Roman Emperor reluctantly annulled the Edict of Restitution that had declared all church territories that had been secularized to be automatically restored to the Catholic Church. So that has been taken off the table, and the Swedish army completely defeated in 1634. But the German princes still feared Ferdinand II, so Wallenstein was assassinated to appease them. And so at the end of our Swedish phase, we have the Swedish army who's defeated, but we have the Edict of Restitution taken off the table. But however, when the Swedish army was defeated in 1634, we're going to have kind of a change of roles here, as France will now begin to fear a resurgence of Catholicism in the Holy Roman Empire. So before we move on to the French phase, here is the map of the Spanish phase of the 30 Years' War. Wallenstein's treks as he pushes through France, Sweden, Gustavus Adolphus here as we move through the Swedish phase, ending in 1634 with the Swedish defeat. Here is a portrait, very Baroque here, of Gustavus Adolphus, our Swedish king, and his push that will forever end the Habsburgs' hope of reuniting Germany under Catholicism. And that begins our French phase, or what is known as the international phase, from 1635 to 1648. And for this is where France and Sweden switch roles. And all countries in Europe now participated in the 30 Years' War. Cardinal Richelieu of France will ally with the Protestant forces to defeat the Holy Roman Empire, as it occurred in the earlier Hapsburg-Valois War. They had allied with Holland, Sweden, Finland, and German mercenaries. Richelieu's policies are going to reflect Catholic France's paramount diplomatic concerns as political, not religious. Thus, he can be seen as a politique as well. Had the Habsburgs won in Germany, France would have been confronted with a more powerful German state on its eastern border. So France is going to kind of switch, take the lead here. Cardinal Richelieu being the leader at this time for the French Protestant forces, are allying with the Protestant forces to defeat the Holy Roman Empire. So we turn from this religious pretense that we've been going through in the wars of religion, and back to kind of a state-centered view, or that Richelieu is kind of Machiavellian. The state comes before religion. I'm going to make sure there's not a unified Germany next to me. I would prefer to have the Habsburg or the Holy Roman Empire decreased in power than I would to reunite as a Catholic. This phase in the war, however, was the most destructive. German towns will be decimated during the French phase. Agriculture will collapse and famine will result. 8 million will be dead, 1/3 of the population, from 21 million in 1618 to 13.5 million in 1648. Caused massive inflation and crippled trade throughout Europe. Germany will be further divided by the decline of the Holy Roman Empire. However, this will be the end of the wars of religion and the beginning of the rise of France as the dominant European power. We'll also kind of accelerate here the continued rise of England after its success against the Spanish Armada, the Netherlands, and Prussia. And this is going to be the beginning of a balance of power diplomacy emerging in Europe. And so what brought us here, what ends this 30 Years' War and gives us these results is going to be the treaty or the Peace of Westphalia of 1648. So the Peace of Westphalia, or the Treaty of Westphalia of 1648, political provisions. It will provide for the dissolution of the Holy Roman Empire. The Netherlands and Switzerland are going to gain their independence from Spanish rule. 300+ German states will become sovereign. The Pope will be denied the right to intervene in Holy Roman Empire affairs. France, Sweden, and Brandenburg, or future Prussia, will receive various territories and gain international stature. The two Habsburg branches will be weakened, so the Spanish Habsburgs are going to see their empire decline dramatically thereafter, and the Austrian Habsburgs lost much of their influence in Germany. The Peace of Westphalia or Treaty of Westphalia's religious provisions, however, are that the renewal of peace of Augsburg, but added Calvinism as a politically accepted faith. So it's a renewal of our Peace of Augsburg from 1555, but with the addition of Calvinism as a politically accepted faith. Calvinists would now have the same privileges that the Lutherans had had in the Peace of Augsburg. In effect, this is going to end the Catholic Reformation in Germany and guarantee that Germany would remain divided politically and religiously for centuries. The ruler of each state in Germany could determine its official religion, but, except in the hereditary lands of the Habsburgs, he must permit freedom of private worship. So we have some more religious toleration coming in. Here is a painting of the Treaty of Westphalia as the parties come together to end the 30 Years' War and the agreements being made. And here is our map that will last from 1688 to 1700. You can see we now have our Austrian territory carved out here in this purple pink. We have our Brandenburg, or what will become Prussia, territory by 1688. Here in the purple, we have our Spanish Hapsburg lands, greatly kind of diminished here, still holding on to a little bit of the Spanish Netherlands. Here in the light green, we have the Venetian possessions, which are down here in this orange, and the Ottoman Empire, which is in the bright yellow, and the boundary again of the Holy Roman Empire here in the dark red. The Treaty of Westphalia may sound great and is called a peace and brings an end to the 30 Years' War, but nobody was happy. Many Protestants are going to feel betrayed. The Pope is actually going to denounce it, and only merit. It's only really reason we're talking about it is because it finally ended the fighting in a war that had become intolerable for everyone, and devastating inflation and huge loss of population and famine. For the next few centuries, this war was blamed for everything that went wrong in Central Europe. So we're kind of setting this foundation, the cracks here, the 30 Years' War of being resolved, but not really being resolved. So what were the long-range effects of the 30 Years' War? To recap, we are going to see that Germany is going to be physically devastated. About 1/3 of the population perished, as high as 50% in certain areas. We're also going to see that Germany was further divided by the decline of the Holy Roman Empire. We're also going to see that the end of wars of religion at this time, and the beginning of the rise of France as the dominant European power, and also the accelerated rise and continued rise of England, the Netherlands, and Prussia. This is going to give us kind of diplomacy emerged in. It's going to also show us a balance of power diplomacy emerging in Europe. In your mnemonic device to remember the Treaty of Westphalia is EF chip. End of wars of religion, France emerges, Calvinism added, Holy Roman Empire destroyed, independence of Netherlands and Switzerland, and Prussia emerges as a great power. Speaking of the accelerated rise of nations, England and the English Civil War is we will pick up with the second part of Unit 2.2, or the final part of Unit 2.2, Wars of Religion.